another episode of Hometown Highlights. We're proud to be a part of the What's Up Woodford Network, where we bring you the stories behind the storytellers, the ones rooted in our communities who somehow speak to all of us. I'm Heather Plunkett, and today's guest is someone who doesn't just live in Kentucky, she creates in it, for it, and with it. Erin Chandler is a memoirist, playwright, publisher, actress, and creative writing professor. She's worn many hats, both literally and metaphorically, from Hollywood film sets to Lexington classrooms to the helm of an indie press. Her latest release, Bluegrass Sons, is making waves for its raw, real portrayal of family, crime, and a Kentucky legacy that intersects with CIA intrigue and desert glamour. Erin, welcome to Hometown Highlights.
Thank you, Heather. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Again.
Let's start from the top. You've lived a big life acting in films with Johnny Depp, writing and producing theater in L.A., and now you're back in your hometown of Versailles, Kentucky, publishing and teaching. What brought you back to Kentucky after all that time in L.A.?
Well, I got divorced, and I'd been there in my 20s and 30s, and I was just ready. My aunt Toss Chandler, who you know, was just starting her battle with Alzheimer's, and my cousins needed me, and I decided to come home. I was 50 years old, about 45 years old, and I went back to school for creative writing just at Spalding and got my MFA in nonfiction. So it was sort of a family thing and a personal thing, just to get out of LA. I think, I loved it. It was a great experience, but I think 22 years was enough for me.
Yeah. How do you like being home?
I love it. It's I never thought I would be living back in Versailles, especially in the family's cabin, but it's just feels like somebody said the other day, "This is your soil," and I'm like, "Yes, this is my soil." And I have pictures of my grandfather and I and my brother walking down down Main Street when he was campaigning, and I'm like 4, and I've got my thing, and it's just, this is my home,
Yeah, I totally understand. So your memoir, Junebug versus Hurricane, was one of your first major releases after coming back. Can you tell us about that book and what inspired it?
Well, that book was inspired actually by the first time I came back in 2004, just as like a test run with my first husband, and my dad moved in with us, and I hadn't been back in Kentucky for a long time, and it was bringing back all of these memories of my brother's death. He died when he was 30. So it's a combination. I started interviewing all my family members about my brother. And so it's a combination kind of marriage breakdown. And we were here for 6 months, and then we turned around and went back to LA with $500 in our pockets. So he was a musician. It was just, so it's sort of a personal thing, and it peaks with me sort of coming to terms with my brother's life and death. So it's mostly about him.
Yeah. Could you tell me about the title a little bit? That's an interesting title.
Yeah, that comes from a Lucinda Williams song, "Too Cool to Be Forgotten." And my brother was definitely too cool to be forgotten. So, it's about people living their life on the edge, the song is, and, a snake handler and a guy that does this and, and that. And then she says, too cool to be forgotten, Junebug versus hurricane, Junebug versus hurricane. So it's sort of like, life is the hurricane, and, no matter what, it's these people that live their life on the edge, I don't think they're going to win,
Versus the hurricane.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
So, and then came Cinderella Sweeping Up, a collection of essays originally published in your column for the Woodford Sun. What kind of themes do you explore in those?
I started out writing a column. My cousin Whit Chandler, he asked me to write a column, and I was just coming up with positive things to say. It was sort of a weird time, and I would just come up with a quote from some sage, and then I would look up that sage, whether it was Gibran or Jack Kerouac or whoever it was, I would just come up with them, and then I would do a little history lesson about that person, and then my own personal lesson. So it was a very interesting exercise to keep it to so many, as you know, because you were laying it out the Woodford Sun, so many words, but also get sort of a history lesson and a moral lesson in it, and it was really wonderful. So I did it for a year or two, and I really wanted to put it in a book, put the essays in a book. So that's what
Yeah.
Cinderella Sweeping Up comes from a Bob Dylan song, and he was what was it called? God, now my mind went blank. But it's the only thing that was left was. After the destruction was Cinderella sweeping up. So it was kind of like, just, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I felt about it. It's just sweeping up after the destruction.
Yeah. So it seems like music might be pretty important to your work.
It
Can you tell
is.
me a little bit about that?
I've just always loved music since I was little. My dad loved music. My mom loved music. I played the guitar since I was like 14.
Hmm.
I'm not great, but I can play. And I played the piano when I was little. And it's just gotten me through from high school on. Like I can remember every event through the music I listened to at that time, from times in LA in my 20s. It's like, oh, that's that section and this section.
Hmm.
And so I can surprisingly like remember every song lyric to everything. I've got like a
Oh,
weird
wow. Got
yeah,
like a good memory
a
in
good
there.
memory for
Yeah.
song lyrics, not
Yeah.
really for anything else. But it's like I can pop up I could probably be a DJ if I tried, because I can mix in from one song to another, and I'm like, that is exactly the same thing as that song, as that, so
Yeah. So your newest release, Bluegrass Sons, takes a very different turn into the world of true crime, espionage, and family secrets. How did that book came to be?
That came to be when some people that I knew from Spalding University came to me because there was a paragraph in Junebug versus Hurricane that said my dad and Dolores, his girlfriend, were in a plane on the way to Guatemala with and it was just hookers who were informants and CIA agents and and drug smugglers and blah blah, and that was it, just about that Guatemalan time. And they said, "Do you think that we could talk to your Uncle Brad, who was mentioned a lot in the Bluegrass Conspiracy?" I mean, it was pretty much about him. My uncle, my mom's younger brother,
Hmm.
Bradley Bryant. And we all knew in the family that there was just all this false information, and it was just kind of written by some lady that was having an affair with a cop, basically. And but it's always on the shelves, and my dad's in it, and all my dad's friends, but they tried to kind of put everybody. There was a lot of stuff going on then, in the 70s, but they put everything in just one stew, as if everybody had everything to do with everything. And I said, well, maybe. They said, "Can your Uncle Brad talk to him?" And for the first time, he talked to these podcasters with me in Louisville. And then Mark and my cousin Whit came in and said, "Why are you not writing this book? Why are you giving, when Uncle Brad's talking for the first time?" And I was like, God, do I really want to dive? Because I know what it takes. It took me 10 years to write Junebug versus Hurricane,
Hmm.
to dive into drug smuggling and the CIA, because I wanted to get the time period, everything right. So anyways, I started in 2020. It took me 4 years of deep diving. I did 36 hours of interviews with not only Uncle Brad,
Oh,
but the
wow.
lawyers, the mayor of Las Vegas, John Y. Brown, Jimmy Lambert, all the people that were mentioned that I knew personally, and all the Shagra family who I grew up with. And then I discovered a lot that my dad was involved in. I discovered a lot that I didn't know, that Uncle Brad was trying to, what did he do? And they're fixing up planes. And it ended up being about my brother also, because, it's my favorite subject. It's my favorite. And it
Hmm.
is about two kids growing up and seeing this. Like my dad hid $1 million in our condo walls in Las
Oh,
Vegas and for
wow.
these drug smugglers who are our friends and who I grew up with, and my brother's best friend. So it's kind of like, there's a tagline that I say, here's to the ones that ruined us. My dad was like the most amazing guy, but he was careless, and he didn't want the divorce. And so when we went out to Las Vegas when I was little and started living there every summer, when I was like 8, it was like all bets are off. It's just life lessons out in the desert. And so anyway, it's been doing really well, and I'm very proud of the book. I hope you'll read it. I'll
Yeah.
bring you a copy by.
I know you've been to the library, talked about it. And that was
Yes.
great. So, yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. We're making a documentary of it now.
are you really?
And I've got an amazing team, and we'll have John Bosch is directing, a director that I knew that lived in New York and Seattle, but just moved back to Woodford County, and he's a brilliant director. He got married and had a couple kids, and he's like, "Where do I want to raise my kids? Woodford County. Come back after 30 years, in New York." And we've got an amazing team that, if you all want to check out the website, it's bluegrasssonsfilm.com.
That's really cool.
And soon there'll be a trailer. Like in a week we'll have a trailer. But I just wanted you all to know about the website because we're going to start filming here in a couple months.
That's going to be awesome. I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, I have so many so much old family footage from like the 40s and 50s, and it's at both sides of my family, and so many interviews and so many amazing voices. I was like, it would be a crime not to let people see and hear this.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So
not as bad as their crimes. No,
not as bad as their crimes. So let's talk a little bit about Rabbit House Press. You founded it in 2015. What was your vision for starting your own publishing house?
I used to produce movies and plays in LA, and we used to, from our acting class, we used to just, our acting teacher would just have us rehearse, and just do it in front of the same people. And I was like, why don't we get the good play and the good actors and, rent a theater for 4 weeks and put the show up, And like Mickey Rooney, let's put on a show, and so when I moved back here and got this polymyositis weakness, I had to move from the stage to literary arts, and I thought it's just basically the same thing. It's producing books for people because I knew so many talented writers that were, and poets that were writing this amazing stuff, and they couldn't get an agent, and it was brilliant, and they just couldn't break down the door. And so we got a group of designers, and we keep our standards very high. The website for that is rabbithousepress.com if you want to see our books, and I'll bring you by a little care package of books. We're just about to, we have Joe Fisher. We just published Joe Fisher's book, who's in her 90s, from Midway, and then we just published this brilliant teenager who's 17, and she wrote a very important but dark poetry collection which I edited with her, about mental illness, and she's 17, and depression, and it's just beautiful. And we're releasing that in about a week, and having her release party at a Likely Story from 5 to 7 on July 25th. And so her name's Esther Graham, and I'm so proud because she is really a brilliant poet. I mean, I've been working with her for a couple of years just through the Carnegie Center, and she found me through the Carnegie Center, and she started writing short stories, and then she fell into poetry, and I was thinking from the beginning I would love to publish this, Out of the Mouths of Babes, the real story, and then sure enough, about a year later, she asked her dad. Her dad came to me, and her dad was interested in having her publish her work. So we kind of do a mix of everything, and but we keep our standards high. The books are beautiful inside and out, which is important to us.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
So now along writing and publishing, you also teach playwriting and memoir at the Carnegie Center in Lexington. What's it like guiding other writers?
It's wonderful. It's wonderful to get you out of your head and hear all these amazing stories that so many people have. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to know Kentucky and all the different, because we do it on Zoom through the Carnegie Center, the classes. And so people will be, and some of the most extraordinary stories and extraordinary ways they tell their stories. And they're all individual. And I just try to guide them to find their true voice and not try to copy anybody else, but really try to, talk like they talk and tell their experience and be fearless and start with the scene. Like I started when I started Junebug versus Hurricane, there were a couple of scenes in my head. I'm like, what are those scenes that really tell the whole story? And then we just craft that scene, and I help them edit it, and we, do that.
Yeah, jumping off from that, what advice would you give aspiring writers?
Oh, gosh. I would say, most importantly, don't be afraid, no matter how it comes out, what it looks good to you, like a painting on a page. The book, however you want to tell your story is the best way. We all, I guess, try to, you know, I used to read a lot of Joan Didion, and my cadences sort of sounded like hers because I was trying to imitate her. And finally I found, my own voice. But you're going to gravitate to writers that you like and writers that you relate to. I remember reading Jesus' Son by Dennis Johnson, I think it is. And I was like, this tiny little book, I was like, oh my God, that sounds like me, or that's how I would, this. And when you find writers that connect with you, read more of that, and then you just realize, yeah, that is how I want to tell my story. And obviously, reading grows your vocabulary, and I, if whatever age you are, I think MFA programs are wonderful. Like Spalding was just one of the best experiences of my life, and I went at 50. So, and got my degree, and it's just higher education's good. Learning from anybody is good, and then ultimately, even if it looks like it's a grocery list and a poem put together with a story, if that's the way your narrative goes, that's the way your narrative goes.
Mm-hmm. That's some good advice. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what are you working on right now?
Well, this documentary.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I go back where the director will be at the house when I get back, and we're working on the trailer, and we've got a lot of live interviews to do of some of the people that, we're starting in September, and we hope to be finished by September 2026. And so we're doing it independently. So it's kind of exciting because we've got a great Catherine Sims from Lexington, and Tim Obeck, her husband. And do you know Erica Fries? She does the Lexington podcast.
I'm afraid not.
She's involved, William Broberg. So it's a great group of people. And instead of kind of trying to sell it to a studio first and get money from them and then have them tell you we want it to be this, it's like, no, let's just do it independently, do it, and then try to sell it. And then, hopefully it will go, because it's going to be based on my book, but it's going to expand.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be doing that for a year.
So for listeners who want to stay updated on what you're working on, where should they go?
Well, like I said, you could go to rabbithousepress.com, and you can go to bluegrasssonsfilm.com, and I think there's an Erin Chandler author.com. So any of those things, we're just constantly, if you have anything that you want to submit to Rabbit House Press, obviously any work, rabbithousepress.com, and then if you just want to keep up with the documentary and the books, and the books, that my books are available anywhere that you want to buy books, Amazon or the local bookstores, Black Swan and A Likely Story. And I just thought there was a little bookstore across the street.
Yeah, that's new.
Yeah.
That's new. Yeah, I think they just cut the ribbon on that last week.
Long ago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be
So-
heading over there.
Bird bookstore, Becky
Yeah.
Lowe. Very cool.
Great. That's great. I love for sales.
And of course, you can also find your books at the library.
Yes,
So,
and
yes.
at the Woodford County Library, yes.
So, okay, well, Erin, thank you for being here. Your voice is such a gift to Kentucky and beyond. We'll be watching closely for all that's to come. That's it for today's Hometown Highlights. You can find Bluegrass Suns, Junebug vs. Hurricane, and Cinderella Sweeping Up at www.erinchandlerauthor.com or at the library. This is Heather Plunkett reminding you that the best stories aren't always on the bestseller list. They're in our hometowns just waiting to be heard.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.